and good evening, everybody. First off, I just want to make sure you can hear me because we did have this problem previously where my microphone wasn't picking up. So, first off, just want to make sure that you can hear me. We are coming off of what was probably one of the most anticipated race weekends, and it wasn't even a weekend for the NASCAR Pinty Series at Ohsweken Speedway, the first time playing on dirt. So, first off, in the comments, just let me know. Loud and clear, party on. That's right, Wes, party on. Dirt racing, holy hell. I'm really excited to talk about this race because it was, as a non-dirt guy, I loved it. I absolutely, there were some growing pains, absolutely. And I'm sure people that are more in tune to dirt racing would probably know a bit more of the things to fix. I obviously, as somebody that isn't as familiar with the dirt side of things, thought it was really good comparative to what we saw at Bristol for the first NASCAR down south on dirt, which kind of was a bit of a mess. This seemed to go off pretty well without an issue. I know that Graydon and the boys, Wes and Brent, were all there, and they had an amazing time. And the festivities, from what I've been told, is it's just started to downpour here, and so I had to look and see what that noise was. It's the rain. They had perfect weather as well. Now, one thing that I think Wes has really been helpful for me in letting me know is kind of the track being really slick, and it looked really slick the entire 2 days that they were there. Sprint cars. One of the things that I think that the whole idea behind this, and if you haven't tuned into the Stickers and Scuffs podcast already, make sure you do it this week because we're going to have Clinton Jeffrey on. Clinton's the GM of Ohsweken Speedway, and I really want to kind of get his thoughts as to how this race worked out. I mean, you had a veteran writer for Inside Track Magazine, Dave Mathers, who commented on this race and said how much he enjoyed it. And that's, I think, what was really noticeable about this event so far is the reach that it's had. In the NASCAR Pinty's community group, we actually have had a lot of new fans come into the series, and their first time ever seeing the NASCAR Pinty Series was at Ohsweken on the dirt. And it's something that has been well needed. I think the next step for NASCAR even is to look at doing combination events with APC. I know there was plans for that in 2020, and then everything kind of got screwed up. But APC series, I think OSS, I think building these type of events is not just helpful to the racetrack, but helpful to the local racing scene. Because I'll tell you, I wasn't as interested in the crate races, but the 360 between Stuart Friesen and Cola Giovanni was a fantastic race. And like I said, for somebody that doesn't know sprint car racing, I primarily don't watch sprint car racing, especially the stuff that's like down south, because it is a little nuts. The potential for serious injury is a lot higher. The risk is a lot higher than being in a big stock car. Sure, there's still dangers everywhere you go, but for whatever reason, just dirt racing's always kind of, sprint car racing specifically, has always given me kind of that pucker factor, as they talk about, right? And I don't know if I'd be able to enjoy it because I'd constantly think about somebody wrecking, but I don't think they go that as fast at Ohsweken Speedway as some of those other tracks, right? But it was a remarkable kind of couple of days. Now, sure, there was some problems, as there has been all season long with Pinty's in terms of timing and scoring, and there was a stream issue right at the beginning. But I spoke with a technical, I guess, liaison, somebody who's there working on the broadcast, and asked him kind of what would cause this. And it's just because there's so much usage of the internet that typically isn't getting as many people using it at the same time as there was for the race. So one of the things that obviously all the tracks are going to need to continue to work on is their service. and internet at the racetracks. That is, in this day and age, if you don't have Wi-Fi, if you don't have internet, if you don't have service, it's going to tune people away, because people are attached to their phones, but also people want to tweet it out. They want to Instagram message it out. They want to live video it out. And that's what we're at right now. We're at time of, the way we live, in that we want stuff now. And especially when it comes to racing, the biggest, I think, hurdle that people have for the Pinty series right now is that it isn't on TV. There's live online streaming, which is huge for this series. A lot of people forget that only a couple years ago we did not have any streaming. We only had timing and scoring, and that was it. Now we've gotten to a point where we have live streaming at every event. That's huge. It's still not enough for some people, which hey, listen, I completely understand. If you're paying for cable or whatever, you'd want to make sure it's on a cable network. There's still a lot of hurdles. I had a conversation with somebody at NASCAR that said, listen, there's a lot that goes into it. It's not as simple as just a let's just stream it on TSN 1, 2, or 3. It's not as simple as that. There's licenses you have to go through. There's advertisements. There's funding, and that's, I think, the biggest thing is doing live, full-on broadcast HD. That is a tough market for sure. So here we are. We are back from Ohsweken Speedway. What was a fantastic couple of days, not just for the series, but to get some attention. I think obviously the big news is that Christopher Bell was not able to run the race. He had trouble coming into the country. There's a belief it had to do with paperwork. So it had to do with specific paperwork to get into the country. And unfortunately, that was a downside. But what people might take as that kind of sucks, it really was a bright spot in a way for this series, because it shone a spotlight on the lower divisions in Ontario, because Jake Sheridan got an opportunity. He is already NASCAR licensed, so he got an opportunity to drive the 64, and I definitely believe that more showcasing of that is what's needed. We've already seen guys like Brandon Watson, Trayton Lapsevich, Kyle Steckley come into the series. Shea Gemmell last year come into the series from the APC series, and they just automatically fit, and they perform well. So hopefully we'll get to see a couple more of those names out there. Obviously Kyle Steckley, I think we'd expect to see him in a couple more races, if not the rest of this year, but next year. And then, of course, I think somebody like Josh Stoddy would be a very interesting get. Maybe hasn't had as much luck in the APC series, but now that he's finally gotten that win, maybe it'll kind of open more doors for him, especially with it. I really like the Ridgeline Lubricants car. I really like that on an APC car, so I think it would look really nice on a Pinty's car too. And of course, I think we know that the series has really done a great job in getting new markets invested, especially Atlantic Canada. I know Atlantic Canada is really, really hyped about what they got this year. And with RS1 out in BC, I think we're starting to cover really every province of racing. Yes, RS1 isn't officially affiliated, but very similar cars. And we've had driver exchanges go out there. So perhaps there's a potential that we go out and see an event at Penticton Speedway, or more than likely Area 27, which is a magnificent facility. I think you get Jacques Villeneuve out there for that one, since he helped design it. It's remarkable that we got that. You got Kenny Schrader and Stuart Friesen, and Friesen did not disappoint. I think Schrader didn't disappoint. I mean, he had an eventful race for sure, but the reality is that for people's first time on dirt with these cars, we didn't have a mechanical failure. You had 23 of the 24 cars finish the race. You had one car that was really damaged from the entire race. The heat races, I'd say, maybe weren't as interesting because the groove, it took a long time to get going. But when they finally got the grooves rolling, it was a lot of fun. There were restarts where they were 5 wide. But what was nice is there wasn't a ton of dumping and people getting into each other. And it is remarkable that we got as clean of a race as we did. Yeah, sure, there was a lot of single spins and stuff, but it wasn't a complete Knoxville like the trucks where you wrecked half the field. I think they did very well. I think they were very tentative, though, too. It was very evident that drivers were kind of taking it easy because it was hard conditions to drive in. And at the end of it, you had a young gun who got passed for the lead clean, and he made a little contact, but not really that much at all, and got right back by. And you had a side-by-side finish to the checkered flag, and that is what we crave for in racing, is side-by-side finish. Jake Sheridan and Marc-Antoine Cameron battling for third as well. It was remarkable to see that. And now, of course, we head on and we continue this season. 3 races are left to go. 2 road courses, and then, of course, the grand stage of them all at Delaware Speedway. And at this rate we're going, man, it's going to be a little bit crazy. We'll just take a look quickly at the results here. As you see, Trayton Lapsovich won this race over Stuart Freeze and Jake Sheridan. His first ever start finishes in 3rd place. I'd love to see him back. I think he's got a lot more to prove, for sure. Marc-Antoine Cameron, there'll be a lot of interest around him in the coming weeks to see kind of if he can hold on with the championship. Alex Tagliani is another that I'll be interested with. DJ Kennington, hey, I'd take that 6th place. That's a pretty good run for him. Andrew Ranger looked strong, but really kind of fell back towards the end of the day, and that wasn't something I think we were expecting. Ken Schrader, I think we're going to take that as a positive 8th place for him, even though he did start in 3rd. Gary Klook. Brandon Watson comes back for a top 10. Kevin Lacroix struggled the entire day, but still came through, finished 11th. Dave Bailey, who everybody thought was going to be up there. He was struggling. I think they talked about it on the broadcast that he was having a hard time with the car. And Aaron Turkey, a solid run for him and Larry Jackson team cars there. Larry was actually up in about 7th position until the end of the race. Sam Fellows just kind of stuck around. Dexter Stacy had a tough race, actually. Spun a couple of times. Brian Cathcart, 17th place. LP Dumoulin, not where we're used to seeing him run. He was one of the guys that really did struggle, and unfortunately, it did hurt him in the point standings. Michael Gowdy in his very first start. We didn't even know he was going to make this race until the day of. So Michael Gowdy in the 38 car started 11th, and he got into some extracurriculars with Trevor Monahan. So they were definitely involved. Wallace Stacy struggled as well. Rafael Lassard, he had some contact, blown tire in the race. Not indicative of where he was running, but he also had he's had a really difficult season so far. Glenn Stiers, who you would have expected to be up there, unfortunately finishing in 23rd place despite being really fast. It was just indicative of kind of how Stiers' luck has been this season, unfortunately. JP Bergeron, solid rookie contender in the top 10 in points, but unfortunately he did not make many laps after getting some pretty big damage after a big pile-up smashing into the side of the 99 car. But let's take a look at the standings. Now, these standings, of course, I had to reuse this amazing photo from Dale Calnan. I absolutely love this photo. It's one of my favorites of Trayton Lapsovich and a sideways Stuart Friesen. Northern Equipment, I'm sorry, but the Pinty's race was painful to watch. Ending was good, but these cars aren't made for dirt, and the lap times show that. You're allowed to have your opinion on it. I didn't think it was very painful. But again, if you're a dirt fan who typically watches the dirt cars go a lot faster. Of course, you're not going to think that this is very fun. But again, it doesn't have to be up to you, really. Like it's if it's not your day, it's not your thing, right? If you like the Pinty series, but dirt isn't the way to go, you don't have to watch the race either, right? So, but I applaud them for trying it. Really, I do. It's definitely. I wouldn't say it was painful, but like I said, sure, there's things that they can work on, and I think that they're going to in the future. Not sure exactly what the type of track maintenance that they can do. I've had a couple people that have been talking like the track maybe wasn't the best for the race. Again, as a non-dirt guy, I can't really say because I don't know. Frankly, I mean, it looked very, very slick, very wet, and I don't know whether they really had much of an option to change it. One thing that was nice about it was that you didn't have it sticking all over the cars, getting in, causing overheating problems. But after 10 races, this is kind of the big deal here, as that's Marc-Antoine Cameron now with a 12-point lead. Now, he left Ohsweken Speedway still in the lead, or sorry, still in second place with, or essentially with tied with DJ Kennington for the lead. And there was, of course, penalties that were handed down for parts, and there was a penalty to Alex Tagliani as well, and that was regarding some on-track action. Here's the thing. I'm not going to go and dive really into the situations here, what was the situation, because frankly, if we're not in the team and we're not in behind those closed doors with NASCAR, we have no way of knowing what the actual situation is. But from my understanding, it's that there was a situation that shouldn't have been allowed, and then it was allowed, then there was a penalty, but because there was a mistake in not originally giving a penalty, then they decided not to give it. It's a lot more confusing. It's probably cut and dry to the people closest to the situation. Again, I'm not a technical guy. I only commentate on it. But again, if there's penalties and people are actually making changes and modifications and completely messing with the rules, I mean, obviously I would be against that. I want the fairest and most sincere competition, but it isn't the first time that the line had been crossed, and I don't want people to sully and think that this ruins the entire season. If you've got an opinion on it, obviously that's a good thing, because it means you care about the series and you care about your integrity of your racing. But again, this does make it very difficult for us, like myself, who've got people on both sides that connected to and appreciative of everybody in the series. But it's a difficult piece to be in part of, and hopefully those situations are done and we won't have to deal with this in the future. But if lines were crossed, I imagine that they will be dealt with on the racetrack and handled by those parties in any way that they see fit. NASCAR's obviously made the call through an appeal process, through a third party. There's people still related to racing. However, I don't know whether or not that's going to be handled. Glenn Stiers needs to buy Jukasa, Northern Equipment Solutions says. Interesting call. I don't know whether Glenn Stiers would even be interested in it, but that would be fun, for sure. I think Glenn's the type of guy you want running a racetrack, because from what everybody that said that has been to the Big O, it is well worth it. So, Jukasa's definitely on that list there of a place that needs to. It's not officially dead, but it definitely needs some help. And I think Glenn would be the type of guy who could probably bring in investors and help bring it. It's people are saying like it's painful, because of how slow they are. The reality is, though, it's not going to go much faster, I guess, on this type of a track. Shame to see the track mothballed again after all the upgrades. Yeah, Sean's garage, it is. Unfortunately, though, that circumstance really has to do with the loss of Kenny Hill. He was the visionary, and that guy lived and breathed racing, and I loved his idea of having short track nationals, Canadian short track nationals here, and I would love to see them come back. I think that I wouldn't count Alex Nagy out. I think Nags would definitely try whatever he can to help bring it back, but it is kind of out of his hands. He's not the owner per se, so general manager is one thing, but ownership is another. And the fact is that it's not torn down, and that's, I think, the biggest thing right now. Sean's garage is that it is still standing. I would have felt a lot worse if walls and stuff had already been removed. That would have been a little more worrisome. But as far as I know, they're still trying. So here we are. The championship battle is really between these two, I think. I don't think you're going to see much more than that. No, Riggs, drama is never done here in the Pinty series. It's been remarkable how the drama started. I would love, honestly, Sean's garage, I would love a G4 Speedway. I think that would be really cool. I can't, like, Sean's garage, the investment, I feel the property is gotta be so expensive. Like, it's gotta be way up there, because you're right in farmland, right? And that is not cheap. I know, obviously, that's been the biggest rumor, was that it was being sold to a cannabis farm or whatever, and that is not actually true. But Murray, there is 3 races left. As you see at the bottom of the screen here, we've got the races in order. So the last 3, we are at Icar, and it's now Complex Icar, CTMP, and then Delaware. Yeah, the money bags, Sean's garage. Lots of money bags for that property. We know property values in Ontario are just stupid right now. So a racetrack would definitely be way up there. I'm going to post this question out here. 33 points, 3 races left. Is Kevin Lacroix out of the championship hunt? And has he given it away with 3 to go? He was in a good standing. Had an awful race. And, GP3R, mechanical failure, Oshweekend, and Sutherland. Pretty bad races for him. All of a sudden, Marc-Antoine Cameron is out there, 12-point lead over DJ Kennington. DJ, I think, is in a rough spot here. He's got 2 road courses that he's got to be much better on now. I know that they've worked super hard on their road course program, and for him to even be close, 12 points is and I don't know if he even needs to be. 3 cars have a solid chance, so 20 points we think is okay. And that's what's interesting, Murray, is that Cameron's not won a championship, Tag's not won a championship, DJ has won 2 but hasn't won since 2012. So 10 years ago. Right now, you potentially could have some major storylines that way. Trayton, obviously, I think is too far out. Lacroix, I think, is too far out. Rangers, too far out. But I think that 96 needs to have a problem, and whether that is from somebody. Listen, I don't get me wrong. I love that team. I like the people in it. Obviously, the situation that's happened, I'm not really okay with. I don't know the whole situation. I'm not going to comment on that. But what I can say is, I don't know if Cameron's deal with EHR has been fully resolved yet. If you're not sure about what I'm talking about, Cameron had some contact with Shea Gemmell last year at Delaware in the second race, and that is going to be interesting because I don't know if Hathaway and Hackinson have forgiven for that contact, and that could be an issue. Cameron's had some moments on the racetrack where he's taken and not given, and we've seen before how that can bite people in the end. DJ, I think, knowing him, he tries to be as clean of a racer. Tags been surprising this year because after the shenanigans that he had at I believe it was Edmonton, with Brandon Watson, comes back and he gets a win at Sutherland and is now all of a sudden in that championship battle, and he's somebody that could win at Icar or CTMP. Delaware, he really struggled last year, was in the championship lead coming into the 3 races at Delaware before losing the championship. So overall, I'd say that, yeah, you've got 3 guys that theoretically could, but I think it's down to 2. I think Tag would need to win Icar and place in at least the top 2, but the problem is that 96 being so stout. Now, where the 96 had trouble, remember, they had mechanical problems at CTMP. They ran out of fuel, and I think they had a fuel pickup problem at CTMP before, and they can't have that. That cannot happen again. So we'll have to see kind of where they go from there. Now, when it comes to the race at Icar Complex, here's where we're looking. Again, that beautiful photo from Dale Calnan at the background there. Now, this is my estimation, okay? If Cameron wins the title, it's Garage Riot. Yeah, probably Riegser. Like I said, I'm not going to have my opinion on it, but just based off of what I hear from everybody else, yeah, probably. There'll probably be some angry people. I'm not even sure if and I'm not going to say that anybody would do something to put him in the wall or anything like that. I think that would be pretty embarrassing for the series, but it would also send a message. And so I don't know. I don't know for sure, but it'd definitely be interesting. Possible entries for Icar. Here's what we got. And this is, again, just based off of what I'm thinking. Now, there has been some additions. I'm realizing I didn't update the graphic that I wanted to update here, but here we go. Glenn Stiers, Bergeron. I don't know 100% if Renato is going to do it. I would expect he would. Now, the 3 car I have listed as TBA, all indications are that 3 car is vacant right now. I do not believe that we're going to see Taylor back. Believe that's kind of it with him, unfortunately. Maybe we get to see him in RS1 in a racing series, maybe closer to home. But yeah, that's right, Sean's. Even HMS drivers on the same team lean on each other. Ray Jr. Kodamash, Brandon Watson. I think Matthew Kingsbury, I would expect that he'll run this one. He had a couple of races that he was planning to, like Toronto and Sunset, that they decided against. But Matthew Kingsbury, LP Montour is going to be running all the road courses. DJ Kennington, Alex Tagliani, Trayton Lapsovich, Andrew Ranger, Simone D'Anvien, I believe, is still indicated to go. Alex Gannett's running all the road courses. LP Dumoulin, Gary Clute, Mark Dilley, Wallace Stacy. Brian Cathcart, again, is a maybe because he didn't make the trip out to GP3R. Don't know if he's going to make that trip out there. Of course, they had a couple of broken axles on those that 71, so I don't know if he's going to try and make the trek out there. 74 of Kevin Lacroix, Larry Jackson, Dexter Stacy, Marc-Antoine Cameron, and Sam Fellows. I don't believe the 99 will be going. Matthew Scannell. I could be wrong, but I know that they really want to make a good effort for CTMP. Those are his big races, so I don't think we'll see the 99 there. But one thing that I do want to mention is a couple of guys that were indicated on our Facebook page. So thank you to those who helped clarify that. So the 55, Tyson made sure to let me know. Tyson said that we can expect 55 of Serge Bordeaux to make another start in the series. He had a tough start at GP3R, of course. He didn't last a long time at all before wrecking. And then I was told by my friend Bobby that the 07 will be back for Dumoulin competition. It will not be Villeneuve. But he did mention something about Daytona being on a Friday. So that might give you some openings as to who could be potentially in that '07 car. The other indication of another driver we could see would be the '04. I know there was that was a big deal, that sponsorship that came on board with JF Dumoulin at the beginning of this year, or well, at least for GP3R. JF had said that they're hoping that potentially they could do a couple more races, so this would be the place for him to do it. JF, obviously, heartbreaking finish at GP3R. But this is really going to be a race where, again, you're looking at the 96, the 74, the 27, at the kind of the front of the field, the 47 and the 18, I think are your names that you're looking at. If you do get a JF Dumoulin, obviously he's somebody that you're going to have to look at. If you get the 07 with potentially Labbe, that's somebody else I think you definitely want to be looking at to come in and potentially do very well. I'll be honest with you guys, this is not my type of racetrack. I've never really been a huge fan of Icar. It's nothing to do with where it's located or anything like that. I just haven't found that the races have really been that entertaining. Now that can change year to year. I mean, it always is. It's interesting. Mirabel, Sean's Garage. It's Mirabel. It's the flat circuit. They went there a couple of years ago. Then they took a bit of a break, and then they've come back. They also have a short track on the Icar complex circuit that they could utilize, similar to like a Martinsville paperclip type of shape. But it's in Mirabel, Quebec. And I don't, like I said, I particularly don't, I don't know how it's going to go. Points guys have to stay on the lead lap. I don't think that should be an issue for our points leaders, especially because it is a road race. I think the biggest thing, Murray, for them is going to be reliability. Because we've seen a lot of issues again this year with whether or not cars are able to make it to the finish. It's like I said, Kevin Lacroix last year kind of dominated it. So my hope is this season we get a little bit more of competition. It was more of a wet / drying race last year. So we'll have to see. Hopefully it gets really entertaining and it's really fun and all that. But I know like Cameron last year had an issue and I think he broke at this race last year. So, but mechanical problems again could plague these guys in here. And that's not what we want to see. Now, obviously, we'll take a look at the race day schedule here for next Saturday. The practice is going to be at 10 o'clock. And then at 2 o'clock, you have your qualifications. Green flag is at 5:45. More than likely, what you're looking at is at a 5:30, as Wes has mentioned here on the TSN app and Flow Racing. That's what you want to see. Of course, there's a lot more there's other stuff happening like the Super Production Challenge that's taking place, the Icar Stock Cars, for the NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts weekly racing that takes place at Icar. Obviously, this race is going to be crucial because this is where you're going to need to win, and you're going to need that 96 to fail. It's definitely going to get up there. It's going to be more than likely a battle that you're going to need to overcome if you're going to get this championship. Like if DJ Kennington wants to win the championship this year, he's going to have to outperform more than likely he's going to have to outperform Cameron by a couple of positions in more than 2 races. Cameron, they cannot have a problem. Yeah, it was a rain race. It was to a degree though, Sean. Like when I think of a rain race, I think of like a full rain. It wasn't a full rain. It dried out. It really wasn't a great run either, unfortunately. Because he just Lacroix killed the field last year. Like he lapped, I don't even know what they got up to. Maybe they got up to like 5th place. I could be wrong. But he lapped so much of the field so early on. It really wasn't competitive. So that's why I'm really hoping this season the competition level is much, much better than it was last year. Like to me, we have a lot of great circuits on the series. But there's a lot of question as to, okay, well, what happens if Jukasa comes back? If Jukasa were to come back, or if you were to add Montmagny in Quebec, if you were to, like, what track is if Riverside's coming back, what track's going away? Because I don't know if we go to 14 or 15 races. I don't know. And I look at these tracks here, I go, well, I hate to say that Sunset would be an obvious choice, but it would probably be up there. Sunset would be up there, and I think the other one would be Icar. And I don't know. I don't know if they make those changes, like, I personally would love for them to go to 15 races. That would be a nice solid number. But the reality of the situation is I don't know if the money allows that, schedule allows that, the time frame. The reality is we had started the season with 19 guys going full-time. We didn't end with 19 people going full-time because of the costs being so extreme. So the hope is for next year that they'll continue to build, continue to grow. I would like to see pretty similar to the same schedule. We already know that there's a couple that are for sure happening. GP3R has already confirmed that they're back for the first week of August next year. That is going to happen. That's going to stay. We already know Ohsweken Speedway is back for next year and for a year after. There you go. Sunset is no longer affiliated with NASCAR on a weekly basis. So there's your answer, right? More than likely, it's the one that's going to get caught. I think, and then of course we already know Eastbound Park is already 2 years signed on following this year. So, but at the same time though, Northern Equipment Sales, I don't believe NASCAR doesn't sponsor weekly racing at Delaware though. So they do race at non-affiliated weekly racing tracks. So it's hard to say. I really don't know. If Canada has some solid weather, Pinty Series could have 15 plus. I've seen the full standing. We have a total of 47 drivers. Yeah, so 47 this year, Wes, because that's, I think, the most in a long time. Which is, again, that's the type of increase that we want to see. You don't want to be going backwards. We want to be going forwards. And by having races, I think 15 is like a solid number. I think you have to go out west. You have to go out east. Maybe a tie gives Byron pass through the bus stop would kick it up a notch. Maybe. I know a good Ranger Lacroix battle would do really good in Sean's garage. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it before, Wes, that for all we know, they could try and do an ice race in the off season, an ice race or a snow race, something crazy that's Canadian related. But reality is that we need to continue the increase week in and week out. I know tracks like Peterborough, Flamborough likely aren't going to get back onto the schedule. As much as I'd like to see those kind of smaller bull rings in Ontario come back, it just doesn't feel as if that's the route they're going to go. I think tracks like maybe Shannonville or Calabogie, not sure if they're ever going to come back or be on the schedule. I think you've got a big FIA track that's being built in Oromodante. For all we know, that's potential. I did check and kind of ask around regarding maybe Mont-Tremblant. Mont-Tremblant, that is not possible because of noise restrictions apparently. So there's restrictions being put in place here. I don't see Sauble being a choice. I don't see Grand Bend being a solid choice either. So we're kind of running out of spots that in Ontario, at least, that you could go. I'm just like throwing it out there. If there was going to be additional races that say they went elsewhere out of province, one of these races more than likely would get dropped. I don't know if you're going to be doing something like going all the way out to Saskatoon for just 2 races. I think that you would have to do the 2. And if it's me, I don't know how feasible it is, but I would go back to Riverside or another Atlantic track, whether Scotia Speed World, Petty, one of those tracks out in Atlantic Canada, to partner up almost with Newfoundland. Now the trouble obviously is Newfoundland's government and their tourism has really put in a lot of funding for that to happen. So we definitely need some assistance there. Pretty sure APCs could be more profitable. We already know kind of the situation there. It's different, right? Northern Equipment, you can't really compare the two because they're 2 different types of cars, right? But the reality is, so that there we go, right? Sean is saying, like, Jukasa, if we were going to get Jukasa back, one of those tracks is not going to be on the schedule. And if Jukasa is back, is that one race a year, or is that 2, right? Theoretically, you'd want 2 races there. So then all of a sudden, you're really kind of strapped for races. Riverside should come back. The only problem, ex-Royal Canadian, that I know of, and that the only reason that is part of it, was the money for Riverside. Is that I don't believe the cash price was there. However, every driver that we've really interviewed for the Stickers and Scuffs podcast, that we've asked which track that's shut down that you want to go back to, primarily it's Riverside. A lot of people said, oh, I like Jukasa, but Riverside, that was Canadian Bristol. So I definitely think that we have to kind of, as much as series like that, and APC series, it's different too, right? APC is not owned by NASCAR. NASCAR is automatically going to have charging more because of their licenses, right? The attention that they kind of have. Whether you agree on that or whether you're not, NASCAR is really well known worldwide compared to, say, APC, which isn't. But I like what you're talking about, because I believe that the way that they do races could be used by NASCAR as well. I think that you could have APC series on the Friday and then have a Saturday night with the Pinty series. I think they're a perfect combination event, because you've got guys that are going from APC into the Pinty series and vice versa. I think you can get crossover promotion that way, benefits both series. I think you get guys that don't or can't run Pinties anymore, go back down to APC series, guys that want to run in the Pinty series and move up. I think a ladder system, and I've talked about this multiple times on this podcast, is the way to go. We've seen in the Road to Indy how successful they're, like, look at what their programs have done. They've built a ladder system that has, the majority of the drivers that are in the IndyCar series now have come from that. And so if we're able to do that, exactly, it comes down to the profitability for your track. What is the best bang for your buck? And the reality is that NASCAR will bring in some money, for sure. It will bring in some attention that'll go. I mean, I had this conversation with somebody at Jukasa before. Wes, let's just deal with that. But I'll say that we did have, for sure. I'm so pissed that Mossbarn shut down the oval. Same with Peterborough Speedway. Well, Peterborough is not. I had asked somebody within the series when they could come back to Peterborough, and I was told that it's too small of a venue. I don't agree. That's just my own belief. Same with Flamborough. I think both of those tracks have really good personality. I think all the facilities in Ontario really do need a lot of work. Yep, they do race weekly, and they do good stuff racing weekly at Peterborough Speedway. I absolutely love that track. It's my first track I've ever been able to announce at. We were there for the OSS series. I think the OSS series, and I've said it not just because I do work for them, but I still believe OSS is a perfect fit for a companion series for the NASCAR Pinty series. Same essential cars. You got some of those chassis in the OSS series date back to CASCAR. And not CASCAR from like 2006, CASCAR from the 80s. Which is crazy to say, right? It's absolutely crazy. But you got guys like Kevin Trevelyan and Chad McGlynn used to be in NASCAR years ago that are still racing out there. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Jeremy, the reason that they got rid of most sport was the oval was because they would have had to do a repave, and they didn't want to spend the money on a repave because they wanted to do the kart track. I would have loved to see that the oval stay, because that was where I used to go to watch races. It was the closest track to me. So I had a lot of memories at that racetrack, and I'm sad that it's not there anymore, because road courses are great, but then you have so many weekly racing series that only go on ovals, right? So those road courses are normally used for other types of events. But yeah, I definitely believe that even Montmagny, and I know I'm not probably saying that right, but they had the Can-Am 200, which is a ACT race out there, and it was phenomenal. I think that track races very similar to St. Eustache, and St. Eustache is a track that I absolutely loved. It was probably one of my favorite. For the Pinty series to complain that Peterborough is too small is laughable in my opinion. I agree with you, Jeremy. I'm not saying it was somebody in Pinty's series, but it was someone close to the series that said that it was probably too small. I would imagine it's probably because it's not in the highest standard, as a lot of the tracks. The same like Flamborough. They're kind of run down. They're kind of seasoned. I think that's what makes them great. But if you'll look, Ohsweken did a bunch of renovations. Newfoundland did a bunch of renovations. Delaware's doing a bunch of renovations. GP3R is pretty big. I wonder if Atlantic Motorsports Park in Nova Scotia will be considered similar to Lime Rock Park in Summit Point in terms of track width. 11 corners might be too small of a venue. Translation to Pinty's community, maybe Peterborough's track was too small. Probably Northern Equipment Solutions. It very well could be. I mean, it could also be that the track just would have to make, more than likely, Pinty's and NASCAR would have, I would expect that they would have some sort of modifications that you have to have in place in order to race there because of the higher speeds. I believe that there's probably some component to that. I don't know about Atlantic Motorsports Park, though. I'd have to check on that, Reeser, because I don't know that track, so I might have to look into that and see. Because there are great facilities that are still in Canada that we could go to. It's just a matter of whether or not they will fit the bill. I mean, we know that in at least Ontario, land is so valuable, and it gets sold really quickly for a lot of money. And I don't know whether or not we're not going to get the investments that, say, Charlotte just made with North Wilkesboro. We're not going to get the government giving us millions of dollars to revitalize a racetrack. If it was a hockey arena, yeah, probably we would, but it's not the same situation, unfortunately. And that hurts the racing scene here. We're also, people forget too, we're also on a very limited schedule here. We don't have from February until November to race. We don't. We have May until mid-September, early October. Have you compared Peterborough to Sunset or Flamborough? No, I haven't. I've been to all three tracks. Absolutely love all three of them. You're probably right, but for a series like NASCAR that claims to be all about small time removing tracks, well, hold on. So remove. They're not removing. They're just choosing not to go there. All those tracks haven't spent a cent in 30 years. That's what I'm saying, right? So it's similar, right? I bet that's probably got a bit to do with it. If the tracks, it hurts this year. I know that some of these tracks are dying in terms of their car counts, like really bad. I feel like Michigan would be a cool. I don't know if they can, because I don't know if the car is safe enough to do that high speed. I know it might sound a little crazy, but because they don't go to these big ovals, I don't know if they have the testing for it. But one person, I don't know who it was exactly, that maybe it was Kyle Lawler on Twitter, had said Watkins Glen, and I was like, you know what? Of all the tracks that are like in the U.S. that we could go to, that could fit because we've got a lot of road course racers here. But again, I don't know if the cars would translate. I think they translate better on a road course than they would on an oval. Still have lead paint on the bathroom walls from the 60s. Maybe they got to spend some money on fanning. That's the problem, though. That's the problem, Jeremy, is you have to have that money. Remember, these guys came off of 2 years, essentially, of COVID, and that has really hurt the value. The problem is if you're getting 4 to 6 cars in a division every week and you can't pay them out, it's really hard to get those partners. That's why doing this type of stuff with us is we're trying to attract companies to come in and spend the money to help out those racetracks, help out those racing series. It's going to be up to people that are fans, the teams and the drivers and the tracks. They're working to do what they can. So is NASCAR even relevant in a Canadian Tour Series? No, I don't think it is. I think we had a series for many years here, Murray and CASCAR, that was super impressive. It got a whole lot of things. See, exactly that. 5 late models, like that's tough. That's tough to try and sell to fans to come in, and then you're not making the money. So unfortunately, that's a problem. But that also can be a symptom of a bigger problem as well. Northern Equipment, like we don't know really the breakdown between what people are getting paid to race. There's so much involved in it. So no, Murray, I don't believe NASCAR per se is relevant in terms of having a touring series, but it's the name recognition that I think people will know. I mean, people know NASCAR. Having the name CASCAR back in the day, it got to a point where people knew it. But that's the situation though. This is like CASCAR is done. It's been gone since 2006. So this is the hand we're dealt. I think with names like Tony Spiteri coming in, with guys like Quick coming in and supporting racing from the podcasts that people have, like Jomo Media, who supports so much small time short track racing. I get the safety advancements and such. It would be cool if things were done to consider it later in the decade. I agree with you 1,000%, Reeser. Absolutely. It is a total. You know what, Jeremy? There really isn't a win, unfortunately. It is. They need the series to make the money they need, but they need the money to attract the series. It is, and sadly, it is hanging by a thread because we're constantly going to have the situation right in front of our faces, which is environmentally friendly. Racing is not, and that's going to be the biggest hurdle. Because you're running cars, you're not running electric cars. God forbid we run electric cars around our racetracks. It's going to be a hard sell. And I know eventually, like I said, we are on borrowed time, and I don't think people realize how much. That's why we need to try and help as much as we can. It is a really, really tough thing. I mean, you have to remember Barrie Speedway, for example, Barrie Speedway, Kawartha Speedway, these Mosport Oval, they didn't close for no reason, right? And I worry about Sunset Speedway because it is down the road from developments. And I know the Todishes are there, and the team that's there, does whatever they can. But JP at Peterborough, it's the same situation. I mean, you look at it and go, if you're in that situation and you're struggling week in and week out to make money, and then a developer comes and gives you a $10 million check, what are you going to do? Right? You take the money and run. That's what most people would do. It's tough. Hybrid cars, yes. However, that's the big time racing, Sean's. Like this, we're not going to see that here. Barrie closed because Live Nation bought it. it was closed regardless. It got closed, right? If it was a huge money-making endeavor, it would have stayed open, right? Not only that, you look out at Vernon, you look at Race City. I mean, there is countless old NASCAR tracks that have closed down, right? So no matter what you say, I think that the situation we're in right now is really tough because you have those racetracks that are getting 5 cars, and the crowds aren't going to be really interested in seeing 5 cars. It's a tough sell, and I don't know if it's just people don't know about racing. If people aren't invested, if they don't have the attention span, if they don't have the money, it really is an interesting. I know this season especially, it's got a lot to do with money and gas and everything, but the tire shortages as well. There's a lot that this season and this year is really trying to. It's almost like it's really hurting. And I said a couple of years ago that we wouldn't get the full scope of the damage COVID has done to the racing scene until a couple of years, and I think this is what's happening. They're starting to see that all the supply chain issues are because we ran out of what we had, and now they have got to build all that back, but people still need it, so it's going to take years for it to build back. We're heading back out to Complex Icar this weekend for Barry was more popular than Sunset at the time, but Live Nation, Boots and Hearts, back to Truckload. There you go. Money. That's what it is, man. We need to get those guys that got a lot of it. It's remarkable that they do what they do, but we can only do so much, and if we don't have the money, we can't keep it running, and that's the situation, unfortunately, and we got to give whatever we can. I know one of those biggest things, and if I can give anything to you guys that are out there that are racing fans, I've been a naysayer and negative about racing for many years, and it wasn't until I started the podcast and learned a lot more about it that I realized. And what's the classic series? Hot Rods. NASCAR Hot Rods. Yeah. It is something. I'm sorry for the cat butt on the screen, but yeah, it's true. Unfortunately, it ruins so much. But we will be able to make it through. What I can say is, just from my experience, is get involved, because sitting there complaining about car counts like I used to do, it does nothing. Chester hears all about it, Jeremy, don't you worry. Nala's over there having a nap, but Chester only cares that his food bowls are empty right now. We are after 8 o'clock, folks. I would love to talk all about this even more, but I have to go record another podcast right now, so I want to thank you guys. Like I said, word from the heart, get involved, go to the races, support race teams, support drivers all you can, because we need to keep it going as long as we possibly can. Starting at the bottom, work its way right up to the NASCAR Pinty Series. So I appreciate Jeremy, Northern Equipment, Sean's Garage, all you guys, Riegser, Wes, all you guys for coming in and having a chat with me this week. I really appreciate it. Make sure you tune in, Stickers and Scuffs podcast. We'll have Clinton Jeffrey on this week. Subscribe for more of that content, more interviews with people across the racing scene. We're going to have guys like Chris Lawrence, Connor James. We're going to have a lot of people that we want to continue to interview each and every week on the show. And then, of course, catch me every Monday at 7 o'clock on GeForce TV for the NASCAR Pinty Series Power Hour. We will be back. If you go to the NASCAR Pinty Series community page on Saturday, we'll do a pre-race show, probably around 4:30, and then a post-race show following the race at Icar. Hope to see you there. Murray, I'll tell you right now, GeForce TV is doing what Speed Channel used to do. And that's coming from somebody that works with them, works for them. They're the reason why I'm so into Canadian racing, is because of them. What Rogers is doing at Delaware Speedway, it's because of them. I prefer watching our racing over NASCAR down south now. I've never been so bored watching Cup racing in my life, and that's because the Canadian racing is just, it's light years above it, and that's because of guys like G-Force, Roger CV, Clinton, Adam, Greg, everybody that puts this stuff on. I really want to appreciate it. I want to thank all of you guys for tuning out this week. Make sure, again, follow us on social media, Stickers and Scuffs Podcast, G-Force TV, subscribe for all their live action. They'll have lots of good stuff coming up still. So we'll get you all next week. I'll tell Clinton that on the podcast, okay? Sean's Garage. We'll see what he thinks of that. Have yourselves a great night, everybody. We will catch you all next Monday here.